Hi friends, welcome to Raising Lifelong Learners. I'm your host, Colleen Kessler, and this is the podcast where I encourage you to trust yourself and your differently wired kiddos as you help cultivate their curiosity, encourage them to discover the world around them, embrace who they are wired to be, all while helping them discover their passions, interests, and raise them to become the amazing adults they're meant to be. Hey, welcome back. This is episode 239. Today we're talking all about collaboration in your homeschool, what it means to be collaborative in your learning, and what that can look like as homeschool families, even if you are isolated and don't have a big, robust outside community. I know you're going to love this episode. There are so many little tidbits that you can take from it. Before we begin, I just want a special shout out, thank you to CTC Math. If you're looking for a great math program, you don't need to look any further. ctcmath.com. They are not just the sponsors of this podcast, but I am a customer as well. I pay for my subscription, my kids use it, and we love CTC. So we appreciate them. You'll hear more about them during this episode, and you can find out more at the show notes for today's episode over at raisinglifelonglearners.com. Okay, pop your earbuds in, go for a walk, tackle the dishes, whatever you need to do, even if that is like hiding in the closet with some chocolate and your earbuds. Do it, and let's get on with today's episode. Okay, so let's talk about this. Collaborative learning, what does it even mean? And how do we achieve collaboration in our homeschool? So I want to talk about collaborative learning, first, what it means, why it's important, and what kinds of things we can do to build collaboration into our homeschool, whether that is through outside engagement and getting together with other homeschool families, maybe being a part of a group or a co-op, or what kind of collaborative efforts we can do within our own home with our own kids and our family as a whole. In my book, The Homeschool Advantage, A Child-Focused Approach to Raising Lifelong Learners, which is coming out July 30th, and if you want to make sure you have a copy on the day it's released, you can go ahead and pre-order. The pre-orders are already set up on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any online bookstores. Pre-order bonuses are going to be coming out. I've got a whole bunch of fun things planned for anybody who pre-orders the book, and those will be announced soon. So if you do go ahead and pre-order, I know that Barnes & Noble ran a special recently on any books that were available for pre-order. There was a discount code, and Amazon runs specials all the time, so you can keep your eye out. But pre-order bonuses will be set soon. So hold on to your digital receipt so that you could put your receipt number in to the order form when the pre-order bonuses are announced. But it is coming out in July, and inside the book, one of the things I talk about is different things that contribute to homeschooling success and learning success. And one of those C's that I talk about in a chapter entitled The 5 C's is collaboration. And so I want to make sure that over the next couple months, we're talking about some of the different things that can contribute to your success as a homeschool family. And collaborative learning is just one of those. It is an educational approach in which kids work together in groups to achieve learning goals. The great thing about collaborative learning is that it involves active participation, shared responsibility, and mutual engagement among the people who are involved in it. Now, a lot of times when we think about collaborative learning, we flash back to the bane of a lot of our gifted minds' existence and the dreaded group project in schooling. And if you have a gifted, a twice exceptional kiddo, chances are you or your spouse or both of you are gifted or twice exceptional as well, because as I've said before on this podcast and in person, apples don't fall far from trees, right? And so if you are somebody who has gifted kids or twice exceptional kids or neurodivergent kids of any kind, chances are you yourself are also neurodivergent. And so you've probably had that feeling of like, I don't want to work with anybody. I'd rather just do it myself, or nobody does it exactly the way that I do it. And so why bother? I want you to think a little bit differently. Just like you think about education differently when you are choosing to homeschool your kids, I want you to think about collaborative learning differently and within the context of a homeschool environment. So that could be your kids working together to solve a problem or plan a vacation or remodel a room or whatever. It could be your kids being involved in a co-op and creating a class together or a project or a business or whatever. It just is a reminder that learning is cemented when we collaborate with others, because it takes it to a different level. It's not just rote where we're memorizing facts and information, where we're synthesizing them and applying those pieces of information and those facts, and getting others involved. So in collaborative learning, kids are interacting with other kids, other adults even, especially in a homeschool setting, to solve problems, discuss concepts, clarify their doubts or their opinions, and create new knowledge. And they're doing it in a collective way. And within the context of homeschooling, collaborative learning can take on even more importance, because sometimes we just, stay at home and we do our thing. I know I get caught in this often. In fact, today, as I'm recording this, my youngest got up before an eye appointment that he has and came to check in with me as I was getting myself ready for the day, to tell me that he got 100% on one of his math assignments and a 90% on the other, because he's currently doing 2 math lessons a day. And my other daughter is going to be doing her math right now while I'm recording this. So we're doing things in isolation because we're checking boxes. We are in a busy season. I've been sick all week. You can probably hear it a little bit gravelly in my voice. I put off recording this as long as I could, but I need to stay on deadline as well. So I'm recording when I'm not feeling great. And so when we get in those seasons of busyness, lots and lots of outside activities, and maybe throw in an illness or two, it gets easier to just go through the day, check the boxes, do the must-dos, do the basics and bare minimum. And so you're not collaborating. And so we can fall into those seasons and just get in ruts. And so it's important for us to remember that sometimes we do need to break out of the set kind of, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and collaborate in other ways. It provides a chance for us to interact socially with friends and even family, because I think that we forget how rich homeschooling can be for our kids, and the sibling bonds that it can grow, right? I tell my kids all the time, if life works the way it's supposed to work, they are all going to outlive me and my husband, and they'll have each other. And so I want them. It's one of my core values, and one of the reasons I'm so grateful for this opportunity to homeschool. I want my kids to have solid relationships with one another so that they have each other and have those strong bonds once I'm gone. And they'll have, the ability to pick each other up and, grow in those relationships with their extended families, that they grow from there, so that they come back to each other. And I want to do that. And I can, if I think about the collaborative aspect of homeschooling being that they can work on projects together and they can do things. So let's think about ways that we can build in a collaborative approach to our homeschool. It's going to grow our kids. They're going to be able to learn from each other as siblings and as an extended family, whether they are involved in co-ops or they get involved in community projects or they are volunteering. 2 of my kids are volunteering in preschool classes, and so they're collaborating with the teachers as assistant teachers and helping to facilitate the lessons. 2 of my kids, 2 different kids, are involved in a class that takes place on a farm, and they do different things depending on the season, working with horses and chickens and just different things. They've even done some blacksmithing. And so collaborating with others through the others' talents and experiences and insights enriches their learning process, but then also promotes a sense of community and belonging, because they're giving to the greater whole. And through these experiences, they learn to cooperate with others, problem solve, think critically, which in today's society are crucial soft skills that we want our kids to learn. And so we can do this in a lot of different ways. We can get our kids involved in, like I said, community classes, co-ops. And I know some of you are listening and thinking, well, there just aren't any co-op opportunities around us. And I feel you. I've talked about this on the podcast before, especially this year. We're not involved in a co-op. The co-op that we were a part of and we loved didn't regroup after the pandemic, and it became harder and harder for us to find a group that we fit in with. In fact, I've done some active looking lately, and the co-ops that I found in our area go up to about 5th grade. My youngest is currently in 5th grade. And so even if they extended it next year, he would be joining with people who have been kind of growing together. So he'd be the odd man out. Plus, he'd be the oldest in the group, and there'd be no guarantee of the group continuing, which isn't really what I want. And then there are other groups in our area that they kind of take on it's really a hybridization of a micro school, but co-op approach where you drop them off for a day or two, depending on their age, and they do activities and lessons related to the different subject areas throughout that day. And maybe there's some field trips and other experiences that they can get involved with. But when you look at the course of study or the curriculum, it's not super cohesive. And so while they'd be there for all day, 1 or 2 days doing, quote, and I'm using air quotes on this, math or science or history or whatever, it's very disjointed, and it's not cohesive. It's based on what the teacher is interested in that particular time period. It's more like enrichment. It's like what we used to do when we were part of this enrichment co-op, and we had classes that were loosely based on science topics and other things, but we knew it wasn't taking the place of a course of study. Well, these particular drop-off co-ops that my older kids could get involved in are being billed as replacement of courses of study, but I know that they're not robust enough to really fully take the place, and they're very, very expensive. I completely understand it, and I value the experience of the teachers who are teaching those courses, those classes, those groupings, but it's not a fit for us. I know that my kids aren't going to get a rigorous enough experience in any given subject, and so I'm going to still have to do a lot when they come home or give them opportunities to get involved in other things. And it's a lot of money for what for us would be purely enrichment and social. And so we're just kind of in this stage right now where there isn't a good homeschool group that fits our current family needs and abilities to even get involved. That's the other thing when you work from home and you've got various ages and you're bringing kids all over the place for their different extracurricular activities. It's hard to find something that you can get involved in. I'm not in a place right now where I was 7-8 years ago where I could teach homeschool co-op classes. I'm teaching classes in the Learner's Lab multiple times per month. I am doing the podcast. I'm doing other things. I'm writing books, and I'm teaching my kids when they need help with their lessons. And so it's to then teach a class in person is a lot for me right now. So I know that joining a group is not always feasible in the kind of co-op collaborative learning way. So we might need to think outside the box a little bit. You might need to get your kids involved in community service, like 2 of mine are, like I said, volunteering as teacher assistants in the preschool class, get them involved in little pop-up classes here and there. 2 of my kids are taking acting classes. I've got one in voice lessons. We'll be doing some music lessons again coming up. We've got the farm classes. One of them's in a dance class. And so we're trying to find, and actually multiple kids are involved in different theater programs. And so they're collaborating on projects in that way. It's a little bit different. When we're thinking about how we can explore some more collaborative learning and integrate it into different subject areas, including our core subject areas like math and science and language arts and history, we can get our kids involved. We can get them involved in the decision making and the planning so that they're working on ideas for how to collaborate with one another inside the home, or maybe get other friends involved, increases their ownership and their engagement in these activities. So a couple of the things we can do is brainstorm. We can brainstorm with our kids. Brainstorm with our kids about the types of things they want to learn about. And then as we're generating ideas of the things that they are interested in learning about, we can then further that conversation and probe deeper. How could we get others involved in this? Could we do this as a family? Could we do this as an extended group? Are there some of your friends who would be interested in this as well, and we could get them involved? For example, we're having some friends over for the eclipse, and I'm already talking to my kids about the eclipse. We're in the path of totality, and we'll share some really cool information. And those kids, even though many of them are not homeschooled, are still going to go away understanding a little bit about the eclipse because it's fun. And as it's happening, we'll be pointing out observations. So we do this this brainstorming a little bit already as a family. We have a piece of chart paper that stays in the family room periodically. We currently have it taken down and we'll put a new one up probably soon because we'll start thinking about different ideas. But it just simply says, what do you want to learn? And they can take a marker at any point and just put it down there. And so as we're brainstorming those different things that we could learn about, like how to teach a class or about horses or about being a better actor or actress, we can think about their interests, their preferences, their ideas, and then go find others to get involved with. If you want to be a better actor or actress, you want to take a class with a teacher and others to bounce ideas off. So there's that collaborative vision to a project and an activity that is interesting to your kids. If you want to learn more about astronomy, perhaps you and one of your older siblings can get involved. In fact, we had this week. My nephew was over and he is very techie, and my youngest is interested in coding. And so Nick sat down with Isaac and was talking about coding with him. And that collaboration, my 11-year-old sitting with his 18-year-old cousin talking about coding, just lit a fire under Isaac. And now he wants to learn all that he can about coding. So the next time Nick comes over, he can show him some things. And so just by brainstorming and talking about the different things that he's interested in with his cousin, brought out these ideas about what he could do and what he could learn about. Hey there. Okay, so you've heard me talk about CTC Math a lot on this podcast and in my newsletter because CTC is the math program we use and we love. I am a subscriber. I pay for my own subscription. I've been a customer for years. My children use it. I love CTC because it's adaptable. It is taught to mastery. It shows you their mastery level. You can move on when kids learn something. You can go backwards if they need extra help with something. You can do a couple grade levels in a year if you need to. You can skip grade levels. Every subscription includes access to K through calculus. So you can use whatever part you need. You don't have to be locked in to one grade level. I love, love, love that. I also love the people behind the company. They stand behind their product. If at any point you feel CTC is not working out for you, reach out to them and they will help you. They will get you squared away. They will help figure it out so you can be successful. And if you still don't think it's going to work for you, they'll give you your money back. You really can't lose using this program. It's the best there is. It really, truly is. It's the most adaptable, the most cost-effective, and the greatest people. So check them out, ctcmath.com, and let them know I sent you because I want them to know how much we appreciate them. People have written in, like my friend Carol, to tell me that they are grateful that they heard about CTC Math because they had a kiddo who just wasn't moving forward. And by being able to kind of game the system and skip the areas that they already knew and move ahead towards other grade levels and complete a couple in a year, made their kid motivated. And so Carol reached out to tell me that she was grateful that she'd heard about CTC. If you have a story like Carol, I'd love for you to share it with me. Just hit reply in any of my newsletters or go over to the show notes for this episode where you can find a link to CTC Math and you can find a link to my contact page so you can reach out and let me know what you think about them because I would love to hear who else is finding success with CTC. If you're having any trouble with the program, reach out to CTC because they're great and they will help you in any way you need. All right, check them out, ctcmath.com, and let's get back with today's episode. Facilitating those group discussions where you and your kids can openly discuss and debate different ideas can also create opportunities or help you figure out ways to get others involved in your kids' learning and your kids involved in others' learning. So if you're sitting around, the dinner table talking about the different things that you've been doing this week or things that you're interested in, maybe the kids that they're hanging out with have been talking about, you can come up with some ideas for things that you might be able to do to facilitate your kids learning with their peers. So I would encourage with this, I've talked about this before too, being a student of your child, being a student of your family, being a student of their friends when you're driving them places and moms of teens, you know what I'm talking about. All of the driving that you're doing and then the sitting in a parking lot waiting for your kid to live their best life and come back to you so you could drive them home and then finally go to bed. Listen to what the kids are talking about and get involved and offer ideas for what kinds of things they can do to bounce ideas off of one another and how they can analyze a situation and help them conversation so that they're diving deeper and they're thinking more critically about the things that they're talking about. And this could be as simple as just interactions that they have with peers and thoughts that one friend had versus another, as well as, hey, I heard you talking about XYZ the other day. Do you want to understand more about that? That's something that I've always been interested in, and I'd love to learn about that with you. And then, go from there. When I went out of town 2 weeks ago, so I went on a girls' trip. It was really nice, really refreshing. Highly encourage any of you to be able to, when you're able to do that, do that. I was able to use airline miles. It didn't cost me a lot. We split the Airbnb 4 ways. And I was able to reconnect with some friends who live in different states because my kids were all at different places and didn't need me to be a taxi that particular weekend. And so I was able to just break away for a couple days. Now, moms of younger kids or moms of special needs kids who are like, I could never, ever do that. I don't know what you're talking about. Trust me, I have been there too. 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to just break away. And so know that your time does come. And even though my time has come and I've been able to do that, if it hadn't lined up for that exact weekend, I wouldn't have been able to do it either. My one kiddo, who is the one who has the biggest demand on my time, taxi-wise, was also out of town that weekend on a school trip. And so I was able to go because that particular child didn't need to be carted everywhere. And my husband only needed to have one kid in one place each day. So it was doable. And so I was able to go. But one of the things that my friends and I did was visit the Biltmore and take an audio tour of the Biltmore. And I had never, it wasn't one of those things that was on my radar as a bucket list place or a place I've always wanted to visit. In fact, I didn't know much about the Biltmore, except the little bit I read on the website before we went, because my friend told me that she's always wanted to go. So we went. But I was fascinated. There were some really cool things that I was learning as I was going through that audio tour and thinking my one kid would love this. Oh, this particular kid would love this. And so now it's something that I want to do and I want to bring them back to, because the idea of sharing what I've now learned and then diving deeper with those people I love learning with is very appealing. And they'll then have that shared experience with each other. So when they're sitting around, years from now talking about their past, they'll have those collaborative shared learning experiences to anchor them and their conversation. I love sitting down with my husband and his siblings. We hear the same stories over and over again, but we hear the stories. They did a lot together when they were growing up, and so they have those shared stories and those shared experiences. That's collaborative learning too. So we can do this as homeschoolers as simply as building the stories within our family, building the experiences and learning together and exploring together, and then we can go, out into the greater community. Another thing that we could do to enhance our collaborative learning within our home is we could rotate the leadership roles. So as a homeschool parent, we often think we have to do it all, right? We have to plan it all. We have to teach it all. We have to facilitate it all. We have to whatever. And I know that there's varying degrees of that. There are some of you listening who have set curriculums and you follow the scope and sequence and you direct and facilitate the learning every single day in a kind of group setting where you start, at the table and then everybody branches off and does their own thing and you come back, or however you do it. There are some listening who subscribe to a morning time experience where you get together and then you go about your day with your independent stuff. There are some who are very eclectic in their approach and pick and choose depending on each kid's individual needs. There are some who are completely unschooling, whose kids direct their own learning and they are just there to help facilitate and get the resources needed. And then there's everything in between. I don't think there's personally one right or wrong way to homeschool. I think the best way to homeschool is the way that your child needs and that you are able to do. So like the best curriculum is the one that you're going to use. The best homeschooling approach is the one that you're going to do. And so for us, the longer we've been doing it, and this is our 15th or 16th year, we get more and more eclectic and more unschooly and interest-driven and self-directed as we go. And so I would encourage you, no matter what philosophy or approach you subscribe to, that you take time to rotate the roles a little bit. So maybe you're the one that directs the learning and the ideas for what kids are going to learn at a given time, usually. Maybe you sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is you like to have with your kids, and you choose one of the kids or ask one of the kids if they'd like to take on responsibility for your next history unit or unit study or topic of interest. Ask them if they've ever really wanted to dive deeply into something. And maybe that is coding. And maybe nobody else in the family really wanted to learn about coding, but your 11-year-old like mine really wants to learn coding. And so the rest of you jump in and let him facilitate like a mini study on it. He could certainly dive deeper, but at least he's giving you a little bit of background on how to code or some of the projects that you could work on as a group. I just recently got an Arduino kit from Home Science Tools. I can link to it in the show notes, but we're going to be starting that with Isaac, and I'm probably going to enlist the help of my 21-year-old with him to be able to facilitate the learning on that, because he's going to have a lot more success than me, because my mind doesn't work algorithmically or analytically in that specific way. I'm much stronger linguistically. And so my 21-year-old working collaboratively with my 11-year-old is going to be a great fit, and it will empower the older one while bringing up the confidence of the younger one. And then the younger one will be able to kind of share and teach the rest of us a little bit, so that he feels his contributions are valued and valuable, and we all get a chance to learn from him, and then we could rotate that around. I'd also encourage you to think about ways that you could invite your kids to propose new things that need to be done. So maybe that is a unit of study, right? Maybe that's like your 14-year-old wants to learn about the human body, and you do a unit study on the human body. And you study that together, you learn about that together. But maybe it's that your 16-year-old wants to have a small pond in the backyard, and you've got the space. So you say, okay, let's learn about what we need to do in order to make that happen. How deep does it have to be? What kind of pump or system setup do we need in order to filter it, especially if we want to have like koi in it? How can we protect the koi from the hawks that come in our area because they know we have chickens? What can we do to protect it while still making it so we want to sit by it and not, see it's covered by nets all the time? What kinds of things can we do? And what kind of budget do we need for it? And so the collaborative effort doesn't necessarily need to be like subject-based or academic in its scope and sequence, but there's a lot of learning that can be done in even digging a small ornamental pond in your backyard, or planting a garden, or utilizing the greenhouse. We've got a greenhouse that I bought for my husband several years ago for Father's Day. It sat in the garage in a box for over a year, and then was finally put up, and then has been sitting there for a year and a half in our yard, not being used. It's really kind of become a storage shed. And so maybe the collaborative project is, let's figure out how to best use a greenhouse of this square footage in the state of Ohio to get a jump start on our garden and to facilitate having, green plants year round, or whatever that is. And so we're building these collaborative projects that, yes, are learning in scope and nature, but not tied directly to a subject, so it doesn't really feel like learning. And then you could get others involved in it. Maybe you have a family member who's very good with gardening or landscaping, and you have them over to help you. And so you're branching out and drawing in some of the collaborative efforts of the greater community and the greater family. So your kids are learning that there is a value in asking for help, in seeking mentors in other areas, because it grows them and solidifies some of those outside relationships as well. Just like my nephew helping my son with coding, it's going to solidify that relationship. And even though they're 7 years apart, they're going to have that shared experience. And my youngest is always going to look up to him. And my nephew's always going to want to come back and see what Isaac is up to. So I think that we can agree, right, that adding in some aspect of collaboration to our homeschool, whether that is just through our family experiences together, branching out to the greater community, getting involved in a co-op if you can, all of those have value. Collaboration solidifies learning. And then it builds on the learning that we're doing to help our kids see that it's not an isolated thing. Like, learning is life, and life is learning. And we want our kids to know that there's always something more to learn, because everybody has cool perspectives to bring to the table. And so we want them to experience that, and we want them to want to go out and find out more. So what are some things that we could do with our kids at different ages to just start building that collaboration? Let's talk about little ones, preschool to early elementary, like roughly ages 3 to 7, maybe even 8 or 9. You could play games like collaborative storytelling. We used to do this in the car a lot as kind of a car game, where one of us would start a story and then we would leave off at a cliffhanger or after a couple sentences, and the next one would build on it. So we would be contributing by listening actively to what's going on and then adding the next part of the story and the next part of the story and the next part of the story. You could create large art projects or activities and things like that around the house that you collaborate on. I remember years ago, I had set out, we have actually still one of those Melissa and Doug weaving looms. And I set it out with a bunch of different yarn and fabric scraps. And I started weaving, and I would leave it partially done. And then I'd go back to it randomly, and the kids started adding on to it. And we ended up with this really cool looking eclectic tapestry. So collaborative art is really a fun idea. Same thing with gardening. It's a great age to get them out into the garden. You could do group building with building blocks, with Legos. We have a Lego club in the Learners Lab. It meets once a month, and kids are given a theme the month before, and they build on that theme throughout the month and then share their project at the beginning of the club. And then during the club, the facilitator, Janae, gives them different prompts for mini builds, and they build and go into breakout rooms and talk about the different things that they're building. What I love about that is while they're not collaborating and building together, they're collaborating in their idea generation, right? Because they're showing what they've built, but they're also listening to what others built with the same exact prompts. So it's giving them a bigger scope in their idea bank for what they can do with different things. Okay, so upper elementary, middle school kids, roughly ages 8 to 13, they could do science experiments with their siblings, with friends. They can, plan and execute those. They can do projects like a pond or a garden in the backyard. One of my kids really wanted a little flower garden, and so she kind of sectioned off a little area with extra paving stones that we had, paving bricks, and then planted some flowers. Unfortunately, the chickens got into that little garden, but then she learned, right, to put up a fence around it. So we can have our kids at that ages do those different kinds of things. They can also work to solve puzzles together, problems together. This is a great age to get them involved in theater. Theater is the ultimate in collaboration and confidence building, right? Because everybody from the set to the musicians to the actors to the directorial team, everybody collaborates to come up with this final production that doesn't have a chance at success without all of the different parts coming together. So it's a really great experience for kids. High school and beyond, ages 14 and beyond, really get them involved in project-based learning, have them come up with projects on their own, join into projects in the greater community. This is a really great time to get them involved in community service. My 14 and 16-year-olds are the two that are doing the assistant teaching in a preschool class, and they're loving it. Peer teaching and tutoring, my older nephew tutoring my younger kiddo in the art of coding and all of that. They can find different ways to work with others whether it's within their own home or the outside community. Babysitting is a great learning experience for our older kids if they are able to do it and get involved with others. The beauty of being collaborative in their learning is that it transcends the subject areas. Like I said earlier, it builds connections within the family, within the greater community, within peer groups. So socially, you're helping your kids form better bonds and set them up for success in the future with a peer group, a support group, whether that's within the family or outside of the family. It gives them a holistic understanding of the connections between subject areas, between things that they're learning, between the greater environment and the world in general. It gives them a chance to see how understanding how the animals live on a farm in this farm class that they're taking can contribute to the health and the well-being of others outside of the farm, because they learn how, chickens lay eggs and how those go to market, or how some are raised for chicks and how that facilitates, other aspects of farming. If they are involved in theater, they see the collaborative efforts come together in a holistic way so that there's one shared culminating project. It gives them an experience with real world relevance. When we integrate all the different areas of their learning and add a collaborative aspect to it, our kids can apply what they know and what they're doing to real world situations and problems. They see the relevance of what they're doing and learning. I love this aspect of homeschooling more than anything, because we can tailor what our kids do to what they need to do. For example, my daughter is going to be really going deep into the art of essay writing in the next couple of months. She is a junior, and she will be writing a lot of essays for her college applications and both her academic and her artistic applications next year as she's pursuing a BFA. And so we are going to be diving deeply into essay writing, but we're going to be using the Common App prompts and other college-like essay prompts that she would need. So there is real-world relevance to the application process, to the essay writing process. It's not just a random topic or an essay about a book that she's read. It's an essay about a topic that pulls out meaning in her life so that she can apply it to stand out in these college application essays. And so that's a really tangible real world experience and shows the relevance of writing an essay. And so we want to do that as much as we can, and being collaborative and showing how all of those things work together and having those conversations can, transcend the barriers, right, between here's what I learn from a school and education standpoint, and here's what I have to do in the real world. I don't think that there should be lines that clear cut. I don't think school is one thing and life is another. And I think that as homeschoolers, we have the best opportunity to cross those lines and build that relevance into it. And we do this through collaboration and conversation about what is relevant and why. It also allows our kids to develop deep cross-curricular and soft skills like critical thinking, creativity, communication, problem solving. They get to approach projects and activities from different angles. They draw upon diverse sources of knowledge. They communicate their ideas with one another within their family and then outside of their family. And then they're more engaged. They're so much more interested in what they're learning because it has relevance. They get to explore topics that interest them from multiple perspectives. And so they often want to dive deeper and they want to learn more. My daughter was working on a monologue for an audition for a Shakespearean play. And she not only learned about the play that she was auditioning for, but the play that she was using as her audition piece. And it sparked a deeper interest in her Shakespearean learning and the literature itself. And so when she was doing her acting coaching, she asked her acting coach about Shakespeare. And they ended up spending several weeks diving deeply into Shakespeare and classic monologues like that. And so it gave her a really rich understanding of Shakespearean literature, as well as the ability to do this complicated kind of acting and showed where it would be relevant and how she could use it in her future career. And so she's got more engagement in that and is wanting me to purchase for her different volumes of Shakespearean literature. So it's become deeply personal, which is another thing that collaborative learning does for our homeschool kids. When it is collaborative, when we're engaging socially with others around us, in our family, outside of our family, it becomes deeply personal and shows them what they want to do as they grow. And we get to tailor it to our kids' interests and strengths and learning styles, going deeper into that personalized approach to education that all of us want for our homeschooled kids, right? We're not homeschooling to recreate school at home. We're homeschooling to give our kids an experience that's richer than what they would have experienced otherwise. And so it gives us the opportunity to do that. And then because it is so personal for our kids and it meets their exact unique needs, collaborative learning promotes a deeper, lifelong learning experience. It shows our kids that there's always more to learn. When we're collaborating with our kids, when we're talking to our kids about what they're learning and showing them we don't know everything. When I had the conversations with my kids about the Biltmore, there was so much I didn't know about the Vanderbilt family, the Biltmore, World War II, different things that happened during that time period and how they contributed and helped in different ways. And it was so interesting to me. But what was even richer about the experience was that when I came home and talked to my kids about it, I wasn't talking to them about these things that I already knew. I was sharing with them the things I learned as a 50-year-old adult going to somewhere I'd never thought to go to before, and telling them I want to learn more about that era and that family and that estate and all of the different things and would love to bring them back in the future. That's learning at its best. That's showing our kids, right, that they can learn for their entire life because the world changes, we need to adapt to new technology, and there's no shame in not knowing and answering and asking questions because we shouldn't know everything. We should always have something more to learn. And it bonds us. I've talked before today and then in past episodes about that shared learning experience, those shared stories. We give our kids shared experiences and shared learning with each other and with their family and friends. And so they bond more deeply. They have more in common. They have more to talk about. And it prepares them for this future that is increasingly interconnected and complex. It gives them the experience with an interdisciplinary approach to learning and conversing in ways that will benefit them going forward because there's more and more about our future that is collaborative and building off of the experiences and learning of others. And so they'll be able to adapt more readily to new challenges and opportunities as they grow. Overall, this collaborative approach to learning in our homeschool offers a rich and dynamic approach to learning. It gives them, our kids, this holistic understanding, real world relevance, cross-curricular skills, engaged learning, and the desire to be lifelong learners so that when they leave us, they can accomplish anything because they know they can ask questions and find someone who knows more to build on it with them. I encourage you, if there's any way you can find of being more collaborative with your kids, having them be more collaborative with each other, and then pulling in outside resources to collaborate with you on your education of your kids and the facilitation of that, do it. Do it in any way you can. If you're looking for a group to collaborate with, we talk a lot about social and emotional themes and creativity, creative thinking, flexible learning. Within the Learners Lab, the kids have opportunities to meet up. There are 2 teen and tween meetups each month. There's the Lego Club. I facilitate a doodling club, which is just calming doodles. There's no major art needs necessary or abilities necessary. And then we also do a creative thinking class, a social and emotional class. And then for parents, because you guys need to keep learning too, we do a master class every month and then a live Q&A group coaching session each month, all loosely related to a theme typically a social and emotional theme, so you can see how it collaborates or can be collaborated upon and integrate into all the different subject areas. It's a holistic approach to learning for your entire family, from itty bitties all the way on through the teen years, and to help you be successful in your homeschooling all throughout. So you can join us in the Learners Lab over at the website. You can just click on the lab button at raisinglifelonglearners.com. We'll have links to that in the show notes, along with links to other information about collaborative learning, as well as the new book that's coming out, The Homeschool Advantage, a child-focused approach to raising lifelong learners, where you can read more about collaboration and then the other 4 C's, and equip yourself to be a homeschooler who thrives and feels confident in your ability to do this. Because here's the thing, there is nobody who is a better teacher or parent for your individual child than you. Nobody can do it better, because nobody cares more than you do. So trust yourself and your kids in this process. You've got this. I promise you. I'm so proud of you. You are an amazing parent and an amazing, amazing teacher. Again, you can find links to all these resources in the show notes over at raisinglifelonglearners.com. You can send me a message. On the same show notes, there is a voicemail widget. You can leave me a 5-minute voicemail message and I'll get back to you. You can also email through the contact form if you've got ideas for future episodes, future guests, or you just have a question that you need answered. I'm here for you. You can learn more about the different resources there and then reach out. And we'll be back same time, same place next week with another interview episode. In the meantime, enjoy your kids. Go out and do something together collaboratively. Have fun. Enjoy the changing of seasons. No matter where in the world you are, we are changing, hopefully, from winter to spring here. And I can't wait for warm weather to be consistent, because I am ready. Have a great one. I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.